is way more malleable than we have been led to believe, and we are way more powerful than we even know. We can easily change things for the better. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Awaken Ascend. I am Jennifer Regular, your host, and so excited to welcome the artiste formerly known as Blake Art. He is Matt, bringing in explosive evidence today that we are indeed awakening and ascending. Matt, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really actually excited to hear about your mission, how you're defining things for yourself right now, how your reality is taking shape, and what's really lighting the path right now, what's driving you. So, welcome. So great to have you here.
Well, Jennifer Regular, thank you so much. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I'm excited to chat about this subject that I'm super duper passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, tell us a little bit about who you are and what's happening in your life right now. What are you feeling called into?
Well, I felt this calling for a long time. I mean, I was kind of born an artist. My kindergarten teacher pulled my parents aside and said, "Hey, this kid's got some talent." And early on in my career, was a big proponent of, Picasso and all and Rembrandt, especially Rembrandt, Dali, and Picasso are kind of like my triumvirate of artists that were a big influence on me. But I'd kind of come to the conclusion that, you know, painting and art for art's sake and all that other stuff, I kind of got disillusioned with it early on in college. I was going to be a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, and be a painter. But my friends who were also in that predicament or in that they were having problems making money, and I wanted to take girls out on dates. So I wanted to go into a profession where it actually, you know, paid for things. But I've also always been intellectually curious. I've been, as well as being interested in art in all its forms, I am just a knowledge sponge. Anything that was new, exciting, and different, I would pursue pretty ravenously. When I was 8 years old, for example, I asked for the new Encyclopedia Britannica or the World Book Encyclopedia for my birthday, and my
Wow.
parents got that for me. And I sat there with the old books from like the 40s that were my grandparents' encyclopedias with my new ones and started at A and flipped through and went through and noticed everything that was different, new, exciting, or things that had changed. And
Hmm.
I think that kind of set the table for me as a budding researcher, someone who, I didn't learn how to do this. I was intellectually curious to know those things, knowing how things really work, knowing how reality is really put together. And I also was a big puzzle solver as well. And that was something that was kind of let me down this path that kind of leads to this graphic that's behind me right here, the golden ratio and a map from long ago. And this map is basically a map of the Earth, in the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries. But is it really? Because when was the last time North America had this big giant appendage sticking off from like Oregon and Washington right there?
Mm.
Well, the last time the world looked like this was more than 15,000 years ago, before the ice age melted. So who made this map?
Mm.
And, like things about the Library of Alexandria, for example, the scribes back in the days, they didn't have copying machines to make maps. They sat and copied old maps and copy of older maps and copies of older maps, and then you copy and copy and copy. And some of these super duper old maps that proves we had a global society before the end of the ice age still exist. And I
Mm.
used to see this a map like this when I'd go to my dad's office when I was a little kid. There was a couple guys that had these types of maps on mirrors in their office. And I used to think to myself, wow, why do those continents all look so chubby? They don't look like the globe that's in my classroom. Well, the reason why these continents look chunky and like look at California, this appendage there, it's like way thicker than it should be.
Mm,
And especially like if you look at the Caribbean right here, it's a lot smaller. Florida's bigger. All these islands are bigger. It's because the oceans during the age were 400 feet lower than they are now. And that's where the whole myth of Atlantis sinking into the ocean. Atlantis didn't sink into the ocean, right? The ocean rose up and covered Atlantis. But it
mm.
was a global catastrophic event that has been proven out by a lot of the research by a guy named Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, famous author. So, anyway, sorry about that. Uh, what's happened, how has that influenced my career as an artist and basically kind of explaining consciousness? Well, I have this desire to graduate to a better way to be as a civilization. There's got to be, there exists one point and another. All the ideas that have ever been developed have always just existed at one point or another as ideas within our minds or things that exist within the spiritual realm, right?
Hmm.
Like for a lot of my ideas, like for the job spectrum, new business venture there or reality redesign, I believe these are like pre-existing notions within the realm of the infinite. All things are possible. These two ideas, I'm a conduit for these two ideas because they're pre-existing notions that exist within the Akashic records, which is the realm of the infinite. Within the mind of God, all things are possible. And that's where this stuff kind of comes from. And it's in this infinite thought structure, which was a term I registered, trademarked back in the aughts. I try to bring into a physical form these new in a digital format, concepts that us human beings can understand. I believe we can strive to uncover what has always been a more perfect, more benevolent, accepting, compassionate world, and a self-selected artist such as myself can lead the way.
Absolutely, and be the way shower. And I love that you talked about being disillusioned by your career and then coming into your calling, because that's the common thread that we hear over and over again. People thinking that their job was their calling, that they were called into it, or this was what they were supposed to do, and this is how they felt aligned with their place in the world. And then often become disillusioned by it and seeking out deeper meaning, knowing that there has to be something more. And so I love that you talk about this reality redesign, because when we discover reality and become disillusioned by it, then we also have the power to redesign it and how our life takes form and shape and be a conduit for what's flowing through us and how we're going to be able to express all of those various parts that we come in with into the world. So I'm interested in hearing, take us through that. What is the reality redesign?
Well, so reality redesign is my own personal philosophy that it's like the umbrella term that makes up, my own personal philosophy. But it was born from the idea of, as you can see right here, the job spectrum concept, which was a
Mm.
new business concept that I came to through the examination of baseball statistics of all things for a
Huh.
piece of my own art. Do
Wow.
you mind if I share my screen with you?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
All right, hang on. Let me pull it up here. Give me a second.
Okay.
What I was talking about here is this is a piece of my art that I was contemplating uh, uh, baseball statistics in regards to this piece, which is called Overanalysis Paralysis Ex Post Facto. And it's all about the mystical reason why the Cubs and the Red Sox both lost in spectacular fashion in their 2003 baseball ALS and NLS series against the Yankees and the Marlins. If you remember, the whole Bartman fiasco with the Cubs losing to the Marlins, and it's because, well, they blamed it on, they gave a scapegoat to this poor guy named Bartman who like was just reaching for a foul ball because it was hit right to him. And the Cubs went on, they were winning 3-0 in the eighth inning, and the whole air in the stadium went out because everybody goes, "Oh, here we go, we're cursed." And the Marlins proceeded to score 8 runs in that inning, and that was just the sixth game. The Cubs had another home game in the seventh game, and they still lost. Why? Because the whole town of Chicago had the mindset, we are cursed. That's kind of how it's what you become what you think about. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what happened with them. So, and then the Red Sox also lost in spectacular fashion. Anyway, I thought to myself, well, you know what? There should be a better way to pay baseball players. This is just me thinking of these things in regards to this whole mystical, how thoughts lead to thoughts and other thoughts.
Oh
And
yeah.
I came up with this diagram about how they should pay baseball players. It's not that it's ever going to happen, but this is how they should pay them.
Hmm.
50% of your income comes from how long you've been in the league, and then 25% of your income comes from how much you pay each team in the order that they finish. What first to 32nd place because there's 32 teams in the Major League Baseball, and
Okay.
then the other 25% is paid on individual statistics. So you've got how long you've been in the league, you've got how your individual team does, and then you've got how you do as an individual. And then you get paid at the end of the year based on how you did that year. So it's a total long shot, and it's like a best case scenario, or kind of like you would say it's like a what's it called when the world like adapts, like it's called not nirvana, but it'll pop into my head. That's how consciousness operates as well.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, this is kind of like communism. This is kind of like socialism, and this is kind of like capitalism. Communism, because you're just in the league. Socialism is how your individual team does, and then capitalism is how you do as an individual,
Hmm.
based upon collecting all the revenue from the league that's generated that year, and then you divide it up in this fashion. So then I thought to myself, well, this that maybe let's turn that into something that leads to where we, instead of having teams in there, we change out the team performance to what the job you do. And then you take these three things and turn it into a survey. And just unbeknownst to me, I organize this in a way that nature operates using fractal thinking, and that's an example of fractal thinking. So the
Okay.
job spectrum acts like a trunk of the tree. The guilds that make up the job spectrum are the branches of the tree. The participants, you're going to be a participant, and I'm going to send you a link to this,
Hmm.
are act as the leaves on the different guild branches. And then you fill out the survey, which acts like photosynthesis. That is the act of turning, the sun's energy into nourishment for the health of the tree. The monthly data display is the flowering. The monthly guild purse split is the fruit. And I'll go into how all this works when and if we've got time towards the end. The advertising media space are the roots, and the advertiser's media buy is the rain.
Hmm.
And it all works down to like a molecular level, just like an atomic level, and it works like a flagellum that propels society forward. And see, it actually spins like a turret on a ship, a propeller on a ship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so that's that. So how does that lead to reality redesign? Well, I thought to myself, in the best case, utopia. That's the word I was freaking trying to think of. So that's like a utopian version of how baseball would work. And the reason why it would work is because everyone's out there during the season hustling their butts off to, compile statistics so they'll get paid better, right? And then
Hmm.
at the end of the year, after the World Series, there's a big awards banquet and everybody gets their check, and then, or their check gets distributed the next year or something like that. So this was like the genesis of me thinking of just a concept like the job spectrum, which is so crazy it just might work. So what that led to with reality redesign is I thought of the top 13 tenets of simulation assumptionism, which is the philosophy behind reality redesign. So I'm going to open up this right here. And do you have any questions about all the diatribe I just kind of uh, deluged upon you? That's a good analogy with
Not yet,
your
but we'll open
screen you've
that
got
up where
behind you.
people can create comments and questions in the YouTube there.
For sure.
Yeah, we can
Oh,
keep
you
an
don't
eye
have
on that
anything?
for
You
the
want me to keep
dialogue.
going?
Yeah, go ahead and keep going. Yeah, let's hear about those
For sure.
tenants. Hmm.
All right, here's so there's the top 13 tenets, which kind of comes from High Fidelity, John Cusack's famous movie that happened, and about records and all that other stuff. Oh shoot, I did I turn the sharing off?
I did because it was just showing the comments and you were talking, so I wanted people to be able to see
Oh,
you as you were talking.
got it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so there we go.
So let's see, hide others. Okay. So I kind of came up with this as like my own personal philosophy thing. And this is very symbolic of like the state of the world today and the state of myself. So the ancient Egyptians revered the dung beetle. It's above all their doorways. It symbolizes the soul, the winged beetle and stuff, which kind of goes back to the rock band, the Beatles as well. But I combined the dung beetle symbolism with the Sisyphus myth. And Sisyphus is the famous Greek god that was condemned to rolling a rock up the hill every day. And before he gets to the top and completes his task, it just rolls back down on top of him. So, and the dung beetle, how does it attract its mate? Well, it rolls whatever male dung beetle has the biggest ball of poop attracts the most fertile females, so to speak, or whatever. So this is the human condition that I think the ancient Egyptians recognized. They recognized the fact that we're all human beings. We're all here rolling our ball of shit around, trying to make the best of life. And it's the cycle of life because what the female rides on the ball as the male pushes the ball towards their mating place. And at night, he navigates where to go to find this place by using the position of the stars in the sky. That's how freaking smart these beetles are. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just the craziest thing. It navigates just like you'd navigate on the ocean. By where the stars come up, you know you're heading southeast or whatever direction you want to go, right? So, and then they get to that place, they dig a hole, they copulate, they lay the eggs on that ball buried in the sand, and then they cover it up, and the cycle starts all over again. So, the purpose of this presentation, that I'm going to roll through here real quick, is to validate a point of view that the world needs new concepts, and that's what I'm trying to uncover here.
Mm-hmm.
It's also to demonstrate that the philosophy behind reality redesign, which is a hashtag on X, it's called simulation assumptionism, all one word. What does that mean? So do we live in a simulation or do we not live in a simulation? Well, we don't know, but let's assume that we do. If we assume we live in a simulation, we don't have to beat the hell out of each other about, what caste we're born into, our bloodline, race, creed, color, sexual orientation, all that stuff kind of goes by the waysides because we're all just in individual vessels like being on the logboat ride at Disney World or whatever, the Viking ride or whatever. It's just that, to quote Bill Hicks, which is one of my influencers here, life, don't worry, don't be afraid ever because life is just a ride. That's down there at the bottom. And then my four other famous influencers that kind of really have affected this is a guy named Terence McKenna. I don't know if you're familiar with him. This is Buckminster Fuller, a famous inventor who's invented all kinds of stuff. Mark Twain, which is the archetype I'm representing. I wear this vest for a reason. It's because I'm representing a school of thought. This is an archetype. And the archetype is a combination of the architect from the Matrix movies, Steve Martin, Let's Get Small, because you got to have a sense of humor about all this stuff. And with his foot in both camps of a sense of humor and social commentary, Mark Twain. Mark Twain was beloved at his time and revered worldwide as a famous author. But he was a dynamic social critic and told the establishment and pointed his finger at them and told them, "Hey, shape up. You guys got to do a better job of, being the ruling class." And he had somewhat of an effect on those people. And it wasn't from a place of hostility. It was from a place of let's do better as a society. And
Yes.
that has almost gotten lost in today's world. I
Hmm.
think if you criticize society, you get canceled, you get, and a lot of times you get removed or, gotten rid of, especially people that invent new ways to be
That's
that
right.
threaten the status quo. So
Absolutely.
lastly,
Yeah, that's why so many
yes,
people hide their gifts, right?
yeah. And, we cannot be afraid to voice, common sense opinions that are critical of the people who are making the decisions.
Hmm.
And if it, a lot of the deep state stuff goes, hey, if you've got nothing to hide, what are you afraid of? Well, that goes both ways.
Yeah.
If they don't have anything to hide, why are you stomping out all these little people with their opinions and their criticisms and their critical thinking? So, lastly, this is a quote from the movie Contact, which is a super mystical movie, very big representation. That the apparatus in Contact goes back to Project Looking Glass and all the stuff that represents time travel, uh, all kinds of things. But Carl Sagan was way ahead of the game in saying, thinking like a vegan, an alien intelligence is going to be more advanced. That means efficiency functioning on multiple levels and in multiple dimensions. And that is the another thing that this diagram behind me represents. This is three-dimensional thinking. It's not something on a flat surface. This curve behind me and the job spectrum logo are three-dimensional curves. It's like you're going into a tube, like near-death experiences. You get sucked into a tube and you're in a tube of light, and all these things are going by you. Also represented in the movie Contact when, Ellie goes to see, at the end when she goes through the apparatus, she gets sucked into quote unquote wormholes. So that's how that works. So top 13 tenets, simulation assumptionism. I'm going to roll through them really fast. All right. You ready? Here we
Okay,
go.
I'm ready.
It's the eternal mathematical principles of nature. Western civilization has lost its connection to spirit. This is the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. And this stuff was not taught in school. Why is that? Well, they don't want us to know that there's solutions to our problems. They want to create the problems and benefit from, you know, uh, uh, not solving the problem, but masking the true source of the problem while and this is how medicine works. This is how fuel works. This is how our history works. Everything. So, that's that. Number 12, artificial intelligence. Everything is remembered already. What does that mean? That means that all this, humanism stuff with everybody needs to have an ID number, everybody needs to have the barcode on the back of their neck or a chip embedded in their forehead. Everything is remembered already because we are in God's, the creator's AI right now. That is the thing of simulation assumptionism. Do we assume we are in a simulation? Yes. So everything's already going to be remembered already. Every blade of grass, every grain of sand, cataloged and organized in the mind of God. Because God has been around forever. He's had an infinite amount of time, an eternal amount of time to do all that stuff.
Mhm.
So the brain is not tenet number 11. The brain is not a hard drive. The brain is a Wi-Fi DVR device. So if you can't remember something, it's not because you can't remember it in your brain tissue in your forehead. It's because the brain tissue in your forehead can't tune into that infinite thought structure where you have that memory. Where did I put my car keys? Where's my wallet? This is the type of stuff that, we tune into these things. And now with tech, now everybody knows at least in Western civilization, everybody knows what a Wi-Fi DVR device is. So we can comprehend, 20 years ago, we wouldn't be able to comprehend how this works, but now we can. Language is the code that programs consciousness itself. In the beginning, there was the word. And this is the thing I am the least connected with as regards to these tenets, because I'm a right brainer. I am not a coder. But this is where AI has come into place and really helped me understand. And I can kind of know now that there is a code for everything, just like, you can vibe code. I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology, but you can speak your code into a prompt and it becomes something that actually works. It's the craziest thing. So those four are kind of a grouping unto themselves, and this is kind of like a team. I liken it to a soccer team, and these guys are like the defense. So these are the concepts that are like universal. So now we're getting into the midfield guys, and these are the things that really work a lot harder and are responsible for the movement of these top 13 tenets moving through the system. So tenet number 9: regulate, monetize, and ritualize all mind-altering substances. Western civilization's kind of already doing this. There's been a lot of progress in this regard, but this is again where we've lost connection to spirit. The tribal and indigenous populations worldwide. This is not weird or class one drugs or anything, that it can interfere with the way their societies function. It interferes with the way our societies, the way we function. It's because the people that do these things become more open-minded and more critical thinking in how they approach their existence. So, number 8: all money, banking, and earnings governed by the mathematics of nature. This speaks against the act of usury and charging people interest that's unfair. We need to get back to where the curvature of the golden ratio and Fibonacci sequence governs the way we handle money as individuals, as a society, and through the world of finance and capitalism itself. Very easily done. How do you do it? We'll go into detail about that in a future podcast or whatever, but that's a huge topic for today. It's number 7: communism, socialism, and capitalism, multiple revenue streams and systems. There's a book that was written in 1978 by a guy named Douglas Hofstadter, and it's called Gödel, Escher, Bach, The Eternal Golden Braid. I'm using that template, which he talked about, the eternal golden braid of music, of mathematics, and of art, that when intertwined together and braided together, it's way stronger and has a lot more substance than they themselves have individually. And that speaks a lot to suspension bridge. If you have individual wires holding up the bridge, it's strong, but if you braid them together and braid those together and braid those together into cables, much stronger, much more durable. This is instead of saying, are you a capitalist or are you a socialist? Well, I'm the good points of those and the good points of communism as well. We can walk, chew gum, and juggle at the same time. We've got talent as human beings. This is elevate and ascending. Elevating and ascending is to be able to think of multiple concepts at once and be able to hold them in your mind. That's an Aristotle nod. So, number 6, we need to rearrange society by age, reorder the working professions from 20 years old to when you're 35 and 40. So, Jennifer, let me ask you a question. What forms of Western culture already do this? Do you know? The answer's in the text, but I want to see if you guess.
No, I don't. I don't know.
Sports.
Mm.
Sports
Hmm.
already is arranged like this. When do you play sports? Well, tennis, for example, you come up, girls start even earlier, but teenagers, 17, 18, 19 years old, they come in, and then by the time They're lucky to be professional players when they're in their mid to late 30s, right? But then
Hmm.
afterwards, what happens? You go into coaching, you start running tournaments, you just start different organizations that, teaching, there's all kinds of different ways to monetize those things. If the droids are taking our jobs and we're getting automated out of existence because of AI and all the different machines that are going to take our jobs. Let's narrow the bandwidth of when people work from, you know, your career is 15 to 20 years long, and then you can graduate and choose to keep working if that's what you want to do, and you can be rewarded by the powers that be in regards to that. But I say the society should make, travel and leisure and, thinking and courses to, educate our minds to be the best human beings possible. That's, you know, will take care of the job shortage, manufacturing bullshit for planned obsolescence, which we're trying to graduate out of right now. So, number five, the shape of society, graduating from a pyramid shaped society to spiral shaped. So, what do they teach you right when you're going to high school and college? To be successful, you got to get to the top, right? Well, there's not a lot of room at the top of a pyramid. It's pointy. And once you're at the
Yeah.
top, you know what I mean? Once
Yeah.
you're at the top, what are you doing when you're there? Well, you try to kick everybody in the face who tries to come up and take your place. And to get to the top, you step on everybody's face and you got to think very Machiavellian and sabotage other people to get there. But if you adhere to the eternal mathematical principles of nature and organize society like a three-dimensional toroidal shape where you start at the bottom and you spin your way up through the top. And that's how our chakras are organized. If you look at um, um, his name will come thrive.com with the guy who used to be in the Johnson and Johnson. His name will pop into my mind
Mm.
just like Utopia did earlier. Palmer something. Anyway, the big research on the toroidal shape of a donut. That's how it's a very complex mathematics, but that's how things. That's another way consciousness arranges itself. And art, Alex Gray in particular has painted this toroidal structure, very, esoteric and spiritual artists have kind of tapped into this shape, and that's another way consciousness arranges itself. So we need, as a capitalistic society, need to start putting these esoteric and occult, which both mean hidden, right? This
Hmm.
hidden knowledge needs to be incorporated into how capitalism and society is arranged and how capitalism operates. So, number four, tenet number four, it's not quantum physics, it's just physics in a simulation.
Mm.
So this goes to is the world a part, are atoms particles or are they waves? Is consciousness act like particles or does it act like waves? Well, it depends if you're observing it or not. If you observe the double slit experiment, are you familiar with that?
The double slit experiment. I don't think so. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. It's the double slit experiment. The scientists fired a bunch of, protons through these double slits, and when they observed it, they arranged themselves on the back where they landed like particles, right?
Okay.
But then when they looked away from the experiment and were observing the experiment taking place, they arranged themselves in a totally different pattern, like a wave. And that is the miracle of consciousness.
Mm.
That is the miracle of consciousness, describing the undescribable. So the world does this in the same way. In the macro level, and this is my own thing, I think I'm the first person to have thought of this. When we observe the earth in its position, measuring it against where it stands for everybody else in the universe, okay? We it behaves like a planet, plane/t, or a particle. It's round, The North Pole's at the top, the South Pole's at the bottom, and there's everybody going around and stuff. But when we're on a podcast called Awaken and Ascend, talking to a crazy person, or we're driving to Burger King to get a breakfast burrito, or we're flying to New Zealand, it behaves like a wave, and it's instantaneous all the time. It's both all the time. So is the world round or flat? Well, hashtag who gives a shit, because hashtag simulation assumptionism,
Yeah,
but it's both and not either or.
that's
So
right.
you can measure
Mhm.
the flat earth. You can measure the flat earth, and you can also measure the round earth. It's simultaneous. Okay. So number four and number three are like the strikers on a soccer team. So simulation assumptionism is the new philosophy behind reality redesign. So these two are kind of grouped together as like the guys who score the goals, and then these two are like the coach and the ownership. And these are the top two tenets of simulation assumptionism are my own artwork that I want to be my contribution to society,
Mhm.
and to kind of set the tone for, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Hey, age of Aquarius. So, number two, Ritual for a New Age. This is the B side of my A side single, right? And it's based upon Matthew 6, verses 5 through 9.
Mhm.
And the disciples are like, okay, Jesus, we accept you're the Son of God. How do we talk to the Father? Well, Jesus says, well, here's what you don't do. You don't go on a street corner and make a big spectacle and do all kinds of crazy stuff, whip yourself, sackcloth and ashes. Those who do that will have their reward. But if you really want to talk to thy Father, go on thy chamber, close thy door, and pray to thy Father in secret, because he will know what you're talking about even before you ask for it. Well, where do human beings do that? They do that when they go in thy chamber and close thy door and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So this is a poop prayer for the masses, that if you're Hindu, if you're Buddhist, if you're Muslim, if you're Catholic, if you're Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're, non-denominational, you can go in there and be grateful and thankful while you ritualize the act of removing waste from your body. And that's a prayer
Mhm.
that you can say when you do that. So that's tenet number two. Tenet number one, which is on the reality-redesign.com website, and it pops up as a pop-up and you can watch the video, is it's called It's Time to Be Nice, which is the anthem for the new age.
Oh, okay.
So there's the ritual for the new age,
Hmm.
and then there's the anthem for a new age. So if the ritual for a new age is the Beatles B-side Revolution,
Mm.
It's Time to Be Nice is the Hey Jude, okay? Because they were
Right.
released as a single back, in the olden days, way before
When we
you were
had
probably
singles, the
born.
45s. Yeah.
But this song was downloaded into my head when I
Mm.
was on a really nice edible, hanging out with friends, and it was downloaded into my mind like in 30 seconds, all the parts, the music, and all that stuff. And it was an earworm in my mind as a piece of art, a song, for like 2.5 years. And I was finally able to start figure the software was released where it caught up with what I wanted to do. And I was able to use artificial intelligence to make the music to sound almost like what was in my head.
Oh.
But my vision for the football season next year is for every marching band across the United States to play It's Time to Be Nice
Mhm.
at the halftime at football games,
Oh, wow.
because, well, there's kindness embedded in this as well. And I know there is a difference between being nice and being kind, and being kind is better, but this is the bare minimum we as human beings can do.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
this correlates with the blog posts I'm going to start doing. I'm going to just start doing them through Instagram or whatever. But one of the first ones I'm going to do is, bathroom etiquette. When
Mm.
you go to the bathroom and you make a mess, clean it up,
Right.
especially if you're in a public place.
Be a sweetie, wipe
You
the
know what I mean?
seedy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this is
Yeah.
this is the top two tenets of reality redesign in action by doing that. It's
Mm.
time to be nice. clean up after yourself. Because there's people that just don't do that, or
That's true.
they're not paying attention, or
No.
they're in a hurry. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Especially us guys who stand up and go all over the place. So
Mm.
that is the last I've got what validates me doing this is I'm a knowledge conduit. I kind of went over that earlier.
Mm.
This is an accumulation of a ton of esoteric thought, which is outside the borders of what would be mainstream or the status quo. I had a near-death experience. I died and popped out of my body when I was 17 years old. I had a shamanistic experience. I had a vision during high school of showing me that I was a hypocrite, and that came from the world of psychedelics. And this was shown to me, and it changed my life for the better. I'm a visualization of quantitative data. I'm a visual guy. I'm not a numbers guy. And then this is how I see data. This is called the
Mm.
Mandelbrot set, which is called the
Okay.
fingerprint of God. And this is where the job spectrum idea, as you can see in the logo, the Mandelbrot set's in the middle. And this is it right here. And then I want to have a dialogue with the ruling class. We gotta, let's, can't we switch it up a little bit?
Yeah.
Because the whole Epstein Island, pedophile, blah, blah, psychotic behavior, let's put that in a drawer for a while and try something new. So
Mm.
that is the end, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to blah this out. And do you have any questions for me?
Thank you. Well, is this what you talk about as explosive evidence that we are indeed awakening and ascending, or is this showing us where we still have some work to do?
We're always going to have work to do. There is no So this is not the way forward. This is one way. There are infinite ways we can better society. I just tried to put everything together in one nice little, Bed Bath and Beyond care package, that comes with sheets and toilet paper and everything you need to, establish a kind of a new, Jordan Peterson, 12 steps of how to get organized. And the first one's clean your room.
Mm.
It's along that similar type of thinking. It doesn't mean I'm a white supremacist. It doesn't mean he is. It doesn't mean I'm an extremist. All I'm trying to do is, as Terence McKenna said, is art's task is to save the soul of mankind, in so many words. And
Yeah.
anything less is a dithering while Rome burns. Because if the artist, who are self-selected, that's me, I'm a self-selected artist, to journey into the other through my visions and through my near-death experience, if the artist can't find the way forward, then the way cannot be found. Well,
Hmm.
there's a way forward. And there's a billion, million, trillion ways forward. Which way forward are we going to choose? Are we going to choose, 1984, be scared to voice your opinion and, to put up or shut up and this, that, and the other? Or can't we come up with, I mean, we live when I was a kid, I was thinking when I had a job as a grown up, it'd be like George Jetson, right? I'd fly my car to my office building in the sky, spacely sprockets, and I'd take the moving sidewalk to my desk from the parking lot to my desk, and my job would be to push a button. That was my favorite. I was, his boy Elroy. Da da da
Yeah.
da 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 da.
Yeah, I
This
love
is.
that show.
I mean, that
Yeah.
was I was Elroy.
You're all
That's what I
right.
loved.
That's
And
great.
there's a lot of people who are saying that China has the better vision, even though China is a draconian aspect, but it's all again about going in and building infrastructure and then saying, hey, you owe us, we built your infrastructure. What the United States is doing is we're going into different places at the point of a sword and the butt of a gun, saying, hey, you will do as we say, or you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? So it'd be a shame that your nice country didn't follow our rules and regulations. Something might happen. That's
Mm.
extortion.
Mm.
This is the world we live in. This is the world we live in. Can it be a much better of all possible worlds? 100%.
Yeah. And as you
And
say, there is a choice.
awaken and ascend.
Mm.
Awaken and ascend is you are on the path. You are on the path. And that's the analogy. And this is the path, on my uh, uh ritual for a new age artwork, which you can order a signed print of that if you want, and I'll send you one for having me on the podcast. Thank you
Oh,
very
that's
much.
sweet.
But
Thank you.
well, thank you. In fact, I got to put one of my dung beetles rolling the ball of shit on this graphic too. That's
Yeah.
the path. If we walk the path given to us by nature, we will. Nature's already succeeded in growing, self-sustainability, growing all kinds of its own nourishment, having everything exist within that beautiful background you have
Mm.
of how nature operates. Because the rivers that flow through our landscape operate exactly like our lungs. They look the same, they branch the same. Our blood vessels, the nerve endings, everything is like a different variation of the Fibonacci sequence and golden ratio.
Absolutely. And you have lots of videos to this effect too, documents, the survey. All of that's available on your website. You said it was realityredesign.com. And we have some video
Reality
links that we'll put
dash,
in the description. Dash, yeah.
right?
So say the
Reality
whole thing
dash
for everyone.
redesign.
Hmm.
Sure. So yeah, I'm sorry. I was kind of cutting you off. So my art and philosophy site, which is right here, is reality-redesign.com. So don't forget the dash.
Hmm.
Realityredesign.com was a URL that was already taken by a sweet gal who I'm trying to be in contact with. Now the
Yeah.
job spectrum is I'm working real hard on getting that to where it's self-sustainable. But if anybody wants to participate in the job spectrum, they can go to www.thejobspectrum.com, and they can there's a contact me, you know, thing there. There's a you can contact me directly through email at blakeart, BLAKEART at thejobspectrum.com or at reality-redesign.com.
Okay,
So you can
perfect. And we're going to
contact me
make it
both
really
places.
easy for people. We're going to have those links clickable in the video description below. So make sure you check that out and be able to connect. And we'll have your YouTube videos that you've shared as well. We'll have direct links to that. People want to see and hear and experience more and really get into some real conversation around this. So feel free, everyone that are tuning in right now, to reach out, to comment, to place questions. We read your comments there on YouTube and answer any questions that you might have, and reach out to Matt, the artiste formerly known as Blake Art. There's wonderful artwork that he does as well. And it's not just art, like it's truly soulful, meaningful um, experiences that you will have uh, to
Right. I
check
don't
that
just
out
draw pretty
too.
pictures.
No.
Yeah, right.
No.
I try to do things that make people think. And that's what
Yeah.
the job spectrum is. When you're
Mm-hmm.
participating in the job spectrum survey, basically what you're doing is you're assigning value to all the different jobs we do as a society,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you think. So how do these people, and then when you're assigning value, it's steerable and drivable. So we can but the purpose of the job spectrum is to one of the many purposes, but it is to push money towards very hard to compensate jobs that are, essential workers. You can go beat pots and pans in the street and praise all the essential workers, but did that help them pay their bills or do anything during COVID? No, it did
Right.
not.
Right.
The job spectrum is a way to do that. So.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt, for bringing your mission, your drive, your energy, your concepts, and your thought structures out into this world and being a way shower of what reality could look like and reminding us how multidimensional our lives truly are. Being able to express it at every level, being able to live it at every level, and really embody that leadership so that we can light the way and be way showers for others too, to guide the destiny of souls into their most empowered way of being, and find ways also as we come together to keep our spirit intact, because that is absolutely essential. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today. Thank you to each and every one of you that have been
Thank you.
tuning in and following us along in this episode. And we'd love to hear your comments. Maybe you'd like to share it with others who are starting to question things too and looking at things in their own unique way. We'd love to hear your perspective on all of this. Matt, is there anything else that you want to share before we end this episode for
Well,
now?
I tell you, it's taken me a while to become this purpose-driven life, and that's a book that was written. I can't remember who wrote it, but I really do feel like I am fulfilling my destiny. This is why I was born. I am supposed to be this archetype,
Mm-hmm.
and just to be a signpost along the path that we all share
Yeah,
in, trying to get the road less traveled for society. But I think it's a road that's more traveled. I think we kind of evil kind of comes to an end for a while, and we, it's the age of Aquarius, golden age that we can look forward to, where we treat each other a lot better as a civilization. So thank you for the opportunity to
absolutely.
talk about it.
You are absolutely welcome. And I love the archetypes. We do the sacred leadership archetype experiences and assessments in the Leadership Ascension Alliance, which is now being merged in with some new invitations into the sacred leadership immersions that I'm super excited to be offering this year. And you'll find out more about that on my
Cool.
website. But in the meantime, download your Sacred Leaders Compass. It's a wonderful tool, if you will, to kind of see where you're at in your shift from your career into your calling and provide some direction and understand what kind of lived experience you're feeling called into. So I'll leave the link for that below as well, along with all of Matt's links. And we'll see you all again next time on Awaken and Ascend. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.